streetwise for what?
To see if anybody knows where the orb is. If it's something that's religiously, revered, and people can go and make pilgrimage towards it.
You can make a streetwise on the orb itself, sure.
Yeah.
You ask one of the vendors you ask one of the vendors about an orb you had heard about a while ago, and one of the vendors just sort of looks at you and just shakes his head and then goes, "The only orb I know about is the lighthouse orb, the Great Keep orb," and he points up at the top of the tower. And as you point up and look up at where he's pointing, you see that a bright white light emanates from the very top of the tower. It acts as it cuts through the daylight. And is extremely bright. You recognize this as actually the light that you would use to navigate into port. It acts as a lighthouse light.
Oh boy, this is a good orb to steal.
Okay. Well, we might as well investigate a little bit closer, don't you think, Denora, John, Dother?
Well, how close can we get as the church is seemingly packed?
I know, but we're going to have to get closer and investigate. I might be able to get closer, but we should probably get into the building first, or try to get in first to investigate.
Okay, can we, sort of push our way through the crowd, see how close we can get?
Yeah, you try and push your way into the crowd, but eventually the crowd seems to be so thick at one point near the entrance of the church that actually pushing away in almost seems rude.
Ooh. And there is only this entrance. This is like the main entrance.
It's the front entrance of the church.
Well, ourselves. The only thing I think about doing is, well, if we could get high enough, we could just fly into the top and see what it is. But if the orb is at the top of the tower, that's a predicament, to say the least. All right. How long does it take? How long does it appear like it's going to be before we could even get into there, if at all, or does it look like we may not?
Looking into the church, it looks like ceremonies are underway, so it doesn't look like you're actually going to get into the church right now. At least not, their normal walking means.
I look at Greg and I ask if it's possible for him to use the shadows to somehow infiltrate and watch and get some information.
I'm going to need to go somewhere in. It needs to be darker for me to be able to do anything like that, Denora.
Plus, even if he can turn invisible, he can't turn it insubstantial as such, can he? So he can't pass shadows anyway.
Oh, I can.
Yeah, you can.
I can. Oh. But I have to be in shadows at all times during the motion. I can't be in the sun. It's too bright outside for me to, unless I'm inside the building, and then I can move through shadows in there. But, yeah, that's kind of the situation I'm in. Be easier if it was nighttime, but
nighttime the doors may be closed.
That's not a problem. Now, there's warrant or anything like that may interfere. That might be a different matter, but the fact of the matter is that it's easier for me to do that sort of action at night than it is during the day.
Okay, I'm going to do a streetwise and ask how long the church is open.
The only answer you get is from one dwarf who looks at you and says, "Well, if you work here, it's open all the time."
Dwarves are dicks.
Church usually open during ceremonies. I don't want me to tell you.
Well, we've came here on a pilgrimage. We're looking to attend the ceremonies, but it's just too full.
You're already attending the ceremonies. Blessed be. Don't you even... you should be kneeling then if you're attending the ceremonies.
I don't want to piss them off, and I just... I kneel. But I still discuss with them, is there any other day that it might be any quieter? Where we can attend in the church?
Well, if you're just here for your pilgrimage, then, you're not going to be here long, but There is a weekly ceremony that you could attend that's thoroughly less packed.
What
And when
type
is
of
that?
ceremony?
Once a week. A week from now.
Oh, what a jerk.
He's trying to pay attention to the ceremony going on. He's not...
Yeah. Probably don't want to piss him off. I think it may be that we need to wait until 9. Greg needs to go all insubstantial and shit.
I suppose so. Okay.
Is there any? Well, obviously we haven't tried. Are there any other back doors or entrances that the public can't usually use that we could, sneak upstairs through?
What are you, criminals?
No, I'm not saying. Sorry, I'm not. I wasn't
No,
saying-
you're not saying that, but you're asking me how to sneak into the church. Go away.
I wasn't talking
busy.
to the dude with that.
I'm busy. Go away.
This is just too busy for any of us to infiltrate.
Yeah.
Any back
Indeed.
doors will probably be full of people. So we need to wait till the darkness of night.
Oh boy, this is going to be an interesting investigation, to say the least. Let's reconvene on the ship for the moment, then.
All right, you guys head on back to the ship.
Okay.
Hi, Kathleen. We've achieved nothing.
As expected.
I think
Kick
it's
him in the
best for us to wait till night because it's just excruciatingly packed right now, and Greg can't use any power to get past.
How does your power work, Greg?
I have to be within shadows to begin. I have to stay within shadows, and I cannot do anything other than move, and that's pretty much it. So if I try to do any other significant action, then I more or less lose focus, and that's my assuming. That's what I was told, is that I have to stay in the shadow at all times. So,
Haven't you been talking to yourself recently, though? I'm asking, do you have that voice in your head?
it's been talking to me, but
Has he said anything recently? It, she, dragon,
It.
I don't know, whatever it is.
I have not discussed anything with it recently, but that is one solution at the very least. The only issue is if something goes wrong and I am revealed inside there, that's going to create a bit of an issue, to say the least. Needless to say, some people may not be quite happy to find a man just appear out of the shadows and at the top of their tower. And the other point of notice, Kathleen, is it's going to be very hard to leave with that orb without
My
anyone
biggest
noticing.
worry is that we will destroy this town. This town will no longer be able to be a port once we steal their light, as it were.
Then
The
what
orb
do you
itself-
suggest?
Well, we can't get in there
It
for
may
the
be a
time.
power that we require, but
But you don't want to leave the town without its source of light.
Right, and you have to. Well, there's a few things that I need to think about before I even attempt to trek in there. But
Well, then, if you guys really don't want to get the orb, there's always a chance that we could still learn something from this town. Maybe
I
we can
agree.
Speak to some other people, see if anyone else has heard of any objects similar to the orb that is in the tower, and maybe there's someone in this town who knows anything about the Demon Baron.
possibly, I mean, this region is pretty far apart. I mean, in terms of the glass roots of the Demon Baron, I mean, we're on the other side of the Great Divide, so this would be a trek through the mountains. So these folks may not have even really heard much about it. So it could require some investigation. Hopefully, in the next few days, the festivities relax some so that we can go into the church itself before I do any sort of invasive investigation, as it were.
well, it just
Alright,
seems we came
so-
in the Which just seems we came on the wrong day to be asking questions.
The wrong week, for that matter.
Alright, so we want to wait a few days, see if Greg can sneak in, see what he can find out about the orb security.
See if we can find out just about the orb itself. I mean, basically...
There's got to be a cleric of Moradin here, or a head priest someone could speak to about it.
Oh, absolutely. We just need to get into the church in the first
place. If we give him a very
place.
convincing story, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, we can get access to see it.
Perhaps. That's good. That's going to involve us getting in the church in the first place, and that was simply impossible today with the activity that was around the church.
Okay, so do you guys want to try to that plan, or what are we doing?
I'm fine with this. I'm fine with waiting.
Try and wait out the ceremony. Yeah. Wait
out the ceremony a little bit.
Let's not
And
waste our time just staying on the ship, with our dicks in our hands.
Yeah.
No offense to Nora. Myself. Let's try to at least get what we can out of the people in this town. Try to find anybody who maybe has heard about, maybe sailors. We're in a port town. Maybe find any sailors who have heard about large storms. We heard that the blue orb seems to be found in a giant maelstrom, so maybe we can find out about any unnatural storms beyond the Goblin Kings.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, God knows, that may be coincidence. Or we can also talk to the head clerics of Morden, or any cleric of Morden here, to find out more about that white orb. Maybe where they found it, things like that.
Well, oh, absolutely. I think that's fine. We'll make it. I'll try to move out there earlier in the day so I can get into the church at least and try to talk to a cleric of Moradin. I think that's probably the first thing I'd want to do. I mean, I think some of you could try to talk to some of the sailors about the maelstrom, about the weather activity. Maybe
I'll do the sailors. I'll head to the bars and do the sailors.
You do the sailors. Woo!
Shut your mouth.
Hey-o.
so. That seems like a fine enough plan. I'm going to.
All right,
I'll try to.
All right, so what are you doing right now?
If it's mid-afternoon or night, what I would want to do is go to sleep early so I can wake up well before sunrise to try to make it to the church as early as possible so I can get.
All right, so we'll take care of that later. What are you doing, John?
Well, on Caitlin's advice, I will head down to the docks and the bars and the pubs around that area, just for general scouting of information. If anybody knows of a great maelstrom anywhere.
All right, so you find one place of particular interest, which it's afternoon and yet it's still a little bit busy. It's called the Dragon's Tail, and you enter into it. And what were you trying to do? Trying to find information?
Information about a possible great maelstrom, like the
Just
Blue
gonna
Orb.
straight up ask people, or
No, just sit around and see if there's anybody. I'll sit around for like an hour or so, just taking in the local sort of area, and see if there's anybody.
All right, so you sit around for an hour, and aside from learning that one man seems to have conducted herpes, you really don't learn that much about any sort of maelstrom or terrible storm.
Is there any one particular person that's bragging about being far travelled, or?
This is a really relatively quiet tavern. You don't really see anyone boasting or really getting too rowdy. Most people come in, they take their drink, and then they leave.
Okay. Could I ask the barman? I'll have to ask I'll go to the bar and ask the guy behind the bar. Does he know of anybody in particular that frequents this port that travels a lot? But,
They all travel a lot.
Oh yeah.
Most of the people
I mean,
sail.
that's a regular in the area that does goes the furthest. Or I know what I'm trying to say.
I know a lot of regulars who are sailors here too. What are you asking?
I'm after information on a particular storm that's said to a permanent storm, if you will, that's said to be out somewhere in the ocean. I'm trying to find if anybody knows anything about it.
Yeah, you're talking about the Great Maelstrom. It's It's far east of here, for so I'm told. It's